welcome to this week's video. I had told you previously that I had recently got a copy of Max Meldrum's The Science of Appearances. And as some of you know, I follow through with what I teach you in classes, with some of the theories and some of the basis of the ideas of how Meldrum approached his work. I've not until receiving this and getting this copy have I ever actually read it in its entirety. And for me, it's been a very interesting process reading it, because it has reminded me of a lot of the things that I was taught and reinforced a lot of the things that I was taught. What I found interesting in reading the book is Meldrum's attitude to drawing. He's not a fan of drawing and encourages you actually to not draw in terms of his theory, and that drawing really is only useful for, I'll say, the decorative arts, architecture and design. So it's a section of the book possibly that I wouldn't necessarily agree with Meldrum. I think it's more the approach to drawing that is of importance. And when Meldrum is talking about drawing in the book, he is thinking very specifically of the type of academic drawing that he would have experienced at the National Gallery School in around sort of 1900 or just before 1900 when he was there. What I mean by that academic style is very defined linear structures that are worked out, so lines around forms and things like that, and then very careful, gentle shading to create the form or the sense of three-dimensional form within those outlines. And that is a way of working that is becoming, I think, very popular again, particularly in America and in Europe. There's been quite a resurgence of those sort of academic ways of drawing, which I have been interested in and observed and watched through Instagram. There's no shortage of people to look at there that are practicing this with quite a sense of admiration. But it's been interesting since reading Meldrum's book that I can see the pitfalls and the limitations of that style or that practice, in that it's locking you in to some very, I'll say, preconceived ideas, which is the complete opposite of Meldrum's way of working. To put Meldrum's working methods in the simplest terms possible, it is the idea of seeing the world in an objective or a subjective way. He argues that most of the drawing, and like the drawing I was talking about before, and that a lot of work, painting and things that were around, I'll say, in his time, are approached from a subjective point of view, in terms of that the artist's emotions, the society's expectation of the artist. He lists a whole number of different reasons, and that then interferes with the way that the artist interprets the subject matter. We impose other emotions and other senses into the subject matter, rather than just purely using our eyes. So he advocates looking at the subject matter in an objective way, relying purely on your vision and moving away from any of those preconceived ideas that we may have about the subject matter that we're painting. He explains and puts out, in a perhaps not such concise way, the physiological way that we and how our eyes work, in that we perceive the tones of things first, then their shape of those tones, and then the colour of those shapes and those tones. So it's very much based around the things that I've often explained to you in term and in class, and why I spend so much time with you with tone and talking about forms, and a jolly lot of time talking about colour. You may also remember that there's often that I'm talking to you about seeing things that are really there, not what we think is there, is often the terms that I put it in. And that's sort of getting into this spirit and this idea that Meldrum is advocating in his book. One of the things that I do find very interesting, and I think that's one of the reasons why I like using this method, is his advocacy that anyone can draw or anyone can paint. There's a universality in that, and it's purely this idea of training the mind or training the eye to see things as they really are rather than what we think they are. So for this week and for this exercise, you can draw and you can use pencil, but I'm going to demonstrate the exercise using charcoal, simply because of its slightly painterly quality that you can get. But if you haven't got charcoal, maybe pastel or something else like that. But if you're really short, is to be using sort of a chunky piece of graphite or a chunkier pencil, so that you can't get in there with too much detail. I want you to set up a subject matter lit from the side. Keep it to a simple subject matter. Light it from the side as you're looking at it. And I want you to set up a board or an easel there beside the work, that it's fixed side by side. I also want you to think about that you're in a space, so what you want to do is find the part of the house where you can be the furthest away from that subject matter and that board. Good boy. So here you can see my setup with the easel beside the subject matter. I cannot actually see the subject matter when I'm up at the easel drawing, and that's an important part of this exercise, is to not look at the subject matter when you're at the easel drawing. What you want to be doing is making all the decisions about the shapes, the tones, and the position of these shapes and tones when you're in your viewing position. So here I am probably about 6 meters away. If you could get even further away, that would be better. In Meldrum's book, where he outlines a version of this exercise, he recommends to take the subject matter outdoors and start from 90 feet away, so about 30 meters. And then begin the drawing by looking at the darkest masses possible. From the furthest away, the contrast of light and dark becomes stronger, and so that you don't see as many tones and as much detail as what you do close up. So make all your observations and your decisions from that point as far away from the subject matter as you can get. So try not to develop the drawing any further than 3 tones. I defined the dark shapes, then used a mid-tone to define the light shape, which the major light shape was that area there on the left of the jug. It's simply just three tones and the interaction of those three tones. So that's it. A nice simple exercise for this video. Good luck. If you have any questions, as always, just shoot me an email and have fun. Make sure you stay away from your subject matter. Don't look at it when you come up close. It's all about making these observations from as far away as possible. Take care. See you next time.